are extremely pleased and privileged to welcome all the eminent honorable guests present here today. May I take this opportunity to extend an extremely warm welcome to Honorable Vice Admiral, retired Asaf Humayun, Khilale Imtiaz Military, ex-Director General, National Center for Maritime Policy and Research, Honorable Mr. Hassan Dawood Butt, CEO, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Board of Investment and Trade, Honorable Mr. Zhang Baozong, Chairman, China Overseas Port Holding Authority, Honorable Mr. Asim Nawaz Tiwana, Director General Gwadar Port Authority, Honorable Dr. Hina Saeed Beg, Director General National Institute of Oceanography, and Honorable Director General Bahria University Karachi Campus, Commodore Muzammil Hussain, Sitara Imtiaz Military Sitara Isar. Ladies and gentlemen, please join in extending a very warm and hearty welcome to all our distinguished guests. These words, I would like to invite founder Bahria Business School, Associate Dean and Principal, Professor Dr. Bashir Ahmed, to kindly moderate this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Anita. It is indeed a great honor for me to moderate this session, which is very important because it covers a very relevant subject with respect to the post-COVID-19 technological transformation of maritime trade and logistics. For a global connectivity in CPAC perspective, it is more so important for Pakistan keeping in view geo-strategic environments in the area and the geo-economic perspective of Pakistan. I'm also honored by the presence of eminent speakers who have their names in the respective areas. So the format of the discussion would be that the speakers they will have their views in a couple of minutes. I would request the speaker to speak about 5 to 8 minutes, and then we have a lengthy question answer session. There have been a number of questions raised by the faculty members here in Bahrain University. I just put those questions on a piece of paper and I shared with the speakers as well. So what I would like is that after a very short speech by the speakers, then we would like to have the question answer session. And I would particularly be focusing on those questions which have been raised by the faculty members here in Bahrain University. So first of all, to start the proceedings, I would request Mr. Hassan Dawood Saab. I understand, sir, you are busy since morning. I think this is your third session, but we would like to start with you, your speech, and then we will call the next speaker, sir. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. It's an honor and a personal privilege to be, amongst eminent speakers who have experience to talk about the maritime sector. And someone can argue that why would someone leading Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Province Board of Investment, which is a landlocked province, would speak in a forum which relates to maritime trade. And my reply to all of them would be that for sustainable development on land, you need economic growth and maritime sector and blue economy. Unless you develop your coastline, unless you develop the efficiency of your ports, you will never be able to develop, and bring in economic growth within the entire spectrum of national economy. And I think we've been speaking about infrastructure, we've been speaking about agriculture sector, and this is when I say is in terms of my engagement, and Chao Bao Chong is a witness to all effort that we did in last 5 years for bringing Gwadar to where it is today. The challenges were immense. First of all, and I will remain within the confines of Gwadar, and then largely I will speak about how maritime sector is considered so important in terms of CPEC. Otherwise, I know we have Admiral Asif Humayun who would speak largely about its importance. So within the scope of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, since its inception, And today I would also highlight why I was given the charge of leading China-Pakistan economic corridors project, because of the fact that before it started, it was the Strategic Maritime Cooperation, and it was revolving around Gwadar. And then later, since 2013, the scope became broader, and we had the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And then from there, from a game changer perspective, it has now changed to one corridor, many doors, with socio-economic coming in, agriculture coming in. And as we are progressing in our path towards larger cooperation with the Chinese through CPEC and BRI, we are actually realizing new areas and avenues where we can actually learn from them and attract their investment, and also work with them in terms of R&D. The challenges that I saw, and this is based on my interaction with Higher Education Commission, and when we were working on university capacity building program under the General Asghar was actually crafting that, and I was associated with this largely. The area that was largely missed out was the maritime sector, and I think in our discussion and debates that happened, and so I tried to encourage them that there is another sector that merits considerable attention and policy guidance, is the maritime sector. And I'm glad to report that this was realized, and if I could share that document with your faculty in Beria and all those who are related to maritime sector. But as a matter of fact, initially it was the discussion started not from Beria, but it started from Lasbela University, and I think the scope is growing, and Beria is now championing the cause of maritime sector, and NEMA perhaps, which is housed in Beria, is taking this initiative. And then later in 2015, when we were working on monographic study, I was surprised to see that all our Chinese experts had larger information about the maritime sector, and their interest in encouraging and growth of our blue economy was more than perhaps some of the pundits who were discussing here, and some of the economists which were in their thinking were landlocked. And I had discussion with all of them. We had series of visits based on industrial cooperation. And similarly, when I engaged with the Beria and also with the leadership in Navy and all the state-owned organizations that deal with maritime sector, I tried to emphasize on the fact that yes, we need to have linkages with China, because especially enterprises like COSCO and China Merchants, which are establishing vast network across the maritime Silk Road. But before that, we should understand the essence of the maritime Silk Road, and how is President Xi Jinping, through the Belt and Road Initiative, is working to work within the confines of the International Maritime Order towards its openness. And I'm sure as academians, you understand, most of you, that while the West is closing doors in Asia through Belt and Road Initiative and otherwise also, we are opening doors, and Asia is now becoming significant in terms of economic realities. And I think this is the right time to talk about the blue economy and maritime sector. And in the earlier discussion, I'm sure some of you participated, my friend from World Bank said that we should not throw seeds into the air. Rather, we should actually plant them on soil and ground and water them. And I think this stands true for maritime sector, where we should plant the right seeds at the right point, engage with the right kind of institutions and enterprises in China and elsewhere, and also develop our understanding through the R&D process that is happening. When I was in China, and I keep going to China because I'm engaged with some of the universities, each time I go there and each time I go to their coastal belt and universities that are there, including Xinjiang and Shenzhen and Guangzhou, I see that their emphasis on maritime trade is growing, and now they're talking about how to leverage not just South China Sea, but also Indian Ocean in terms of cooperation. Sometimes we, through our historic discussion, we keep talking about string of pearls. And I think if we want to actually coin that in terms of string of pearls, we should coin pearls in economic terms. And each pearl within that string should be, delivering in terms of bringing economic growth in the maritime sector on strong footing. And this would also help developing our human resource. I believe that we have not worked on our human resource in blue economy and maritime sector. We have had series of debates, discussion, we have had documents, strategies made, but actually when it comes to the implementation, I have not seen a document where there is a mechanism in terms of its implementation, in terms of monitoring and evaluating the implementation of those policies and strategies. Right now in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we are working with on an industrial policy, and some of you would be surprised that while making that industrial policy, I had continuous debate and discussion with my friend and brother, Mr. Chow Bo Chong, who is sitting here. And Chow Bo Chong actually encouraged me to have an MOU with Gwadar, where resources, natural resources of KP could be transported outside Pakistan through by using the resources at Gwadar, and also when they have these seminars and events where they're promoting Gwadar, they would actually promote Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also, which is now opening up. The security is better, peace is coming in Afghanistan. We are opening new border crossing, as you must have heard yesterday. So, Chow Bo Chong gave me a few ideas, and immediately we made this MOU, and we are now in the final stages of signing that MOU. So, KP, which is on the northern end, and Gwadar, which is at the southern end, makes linkage in terms of economic and socio-economic development of Pakistan. In the 2019 Belt and Road Forum, which I was lucky to participate along with the planning minister then, there was discussion on linkaging not just people to people engagement, but also in terms of university to university engagement in terms of R&D. But unfortunately, when we were crafting university alliance with some of the universities in China, the only factor that came out was the the business schools, not other sectors like agriculture sector, where we have good potential to do R&D with them, and also maritime sector. So I would encourage ladies and gentlemen, each one of you in your respective position, to reach out with Chinese authorities, and we can be the bridge. Mr. Chow Bo Chong could be the bridge between your university and also with Chinese right university. There are many universities in China, and all of them are not working on they have given targets, and accordingly they've been funded to work on maritime Silk Road. Lastly, about the shipping policy, though I'm not an expert on this, but I would only say again that it also again requires some implementation and monitoring mechanism. Unless we have that, unless we have a top-down approach in terms of monitoring this work and also implementing this work, it will not materialize, I reckon. The challenges are many. There are many bottlenecks, but like we were able to remove all those bottlenecks in the CPEC. Lastly, and I'll take 2 minutes in that. In the second phase of CPEC, the sector that was included besides agriculture and socio-economic was the maritime sector. And we talked about not just maritime trade, but also maritime tourism, and 1+5 tourism concept, with 1 as the corridor and 5 small fishing towns along the coastline were identified. And Chinese came in, and unfortunately, and I'll be very candid in what I'm saying, is that all that went into a national debate on television and media about Chinese coming and taking over our coastline assets. And I always argue to that, and Dr. Bashir, would vouch me on this, that in each and every conversation I have, I keep saying that if China had to actually be the East India Company, they would have done that in Changha time. Changha did his voyages and keep coming back in Ming Dynasty, and never they had this intention. And this is not in their in the way that they work. They are quite an introvert nation, and that's why they are called as Chongko. Chongko means center of the world, and for them, this world is China, nothing beyond that. So we should get out of this discussion of East India Company and try to focus on the challenges we have and how to leverage the natural resources by working with China and rest of the countries. And I think this third party participation will help the maritime sector more than any other sector. Last point, I would again urge, if there's someone sitting, and I know that Beria University is working on a National Maritime Research Center. I think that they should find a similar institution in China, and I think Chao Bo Chong can help them, and immediately look at various stages of implementation. Don't look at it as a commercial project. Look at it in an R&D. So you can do in short term certain research work and develop your institution, then in medium term, and then in long term in terms of what you're doing. So and also build our capacity of human resource. So at the end, I would again acknowledge IRP, Beria University, and each of your speakers for doing this national duty in promoting the blue economy and maritime sector. And I think we must also understand that blue economy has to do with Navy, and Navy has to do with blue economy. And then each of these are set up, promote and support each other. So with this, I leave it for question answer session.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm so grateful, and like on some of the very important issues on the subject. We would also like to you to share with us those documents which you referred to para faculty members. At the same time, I would also like to highlight that we have started the maritime education with more zeal now, and we are getting a lot of cooperation from Chinese University, Danyang Maritime University. They are assisting us, and we have started BS Maritime, and we have also started MS programs in maritime. So I move on to the next.
Just one point on what you've said. I'm sorry for interjecting. मैं इसको उर्दू में बोलूँगा for reason. इस तरह होता है, और ये I've seen this while working with HSC and universities both here and now I teach in IM Sciences also. होता ही है कि जब आप रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट में चाइनीज के साथ काम करना शुरू करते हैं तो वो आपसे वो रिसर्च करवाना शुरू कर देते हैं जो कि उनको चाहिए होती है. प्लीज आप पहले अपने एरियाज दैट इन विच यू वांट टू डू रिसर्च देख लें जो नेक्स्ट 10 इयर्स में आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है इन ब्लू इकोनॉमी, और फिर आप इंगेज करें चाइनीज से. थैंक यू.
Thank you very good. Sir, we move to the next speaker. The next speaker is Dr. Hina Saeed Beg. Over to Dr.
Today I am going to share with you Pakistan's perspective on blue economy. Next. Just quickly, I would like to share with you that a National Institute of Oceanography was established in 1982 as an autonomous body, and in 2007 it was endorsed by Parliament by an act. And now we have our main office in Karachi, and we have 3 substations: Gwadar, Sohani, and Chandra. Blue economy actually is a sustainable wealth, utilization of sustainable wealth in sustainable way related to ocean resources and freshwater resources. So, and it also and healthy oceans contribute to most sustainable development goals that were identified by United Nations, and almost all of them directly or indirectly are related to this blue economy. We all know that ocean and other related areas contribute highly in in different aspects like in storing the carbon, in producing inorganic reserves and like oil and gas hydrates and many more, and providing food for a large number of population. The Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, it was first came up in the conference at Nairobi, and the concept of blue economy rests on the following themes like sustainable and inclusive growth, reducing the overexploitation and enhancing the welfare of coastline communities, and ensuring resilience of the countries to natural disasters. Now, I would like to share with you how Pakistan National Institute of Oceanography is contributing towards achieving these goals. How, by our projects and by our research, we are contributing in this area. The first achievement of national pride that we did was establishing our stations at Antarctica. We are performing research in Antarctica since 1991. And in this way, we have established our foothold, and we are now one of the parties in 2030 when there's the treaty will again revise, and if they allow us to exploit the resources, we will also be one of the parties to exploit these resources. Up till now, we are just exploring scientifically different aspects of Antarctic research. Next achievement of national pride is our continental shelf extension. This is again contributing towards a national sustainable resource, because we have worked for 10 years in extending our continental shelf, and we have been successful in annexing 50,000 square kilometers of area to our EEZ. And that means that the resources in that area are also part of our national sustainable economy. Maritime area is now to 40,000 square kilometer, and the coast and the 50,000 square kilometer is annexed to it. We are also trying to, through our projects, we are also trying to assess all our bioresources that are present in our EEZ. And in that connection, we have worked on a project with the FAO, and we have been successful in identifying aspects of it. But after the report, we came to the conclusion that we should perform this extensively, the study, and it should cover the whole area, and it should be repeated several times. Then only we will be able to identify our resources that are present in our area. There are some threats that we are facing in marine environment, and these threats include several aspects like oil pollution and fogs and untreated sewage. NIO is contributing by performing different projects and providing consultancy to various organizations and addressing all these threats that we are facing in marine environment. For example, in 2003, we performed a project for 5 years when there was a big spill in our area, the Swan Spit oil spill, and likewise we performed several other studies in our area. We are also contributing to reduce the acidification. And another very important aspect that we most of the time we just ignore is, as you can see, that these are the routes of the ship that move in our area, and they are responsible for producing pollutants, because the ballast water that they are bringing and releasing in our area, it brings lots of invasive species, and that in these invasive species they can affect the fishery of our local community, and they can produce these red tide phenomena and blue and green tide phenomena and other disease forming species. These species, when they were affecting the fishes, we were not worried about it, but now it is known that they can come to our table also, and people can die by eating these organisms. So it's very alarming, and we are also planning to control this invasive species. Another basic plastic debris is another important aspect that has come up since last few years, and NIO has been actively involved in it, and we are with Chinese counterparts, we are developing a project that hopefully coming this year, we'll be able to start this project. By different projects, we also identify the metallic heavy metals in our area, and especially I would like to bring your attention to this part that we have been working in our coastal area, which is the highly, which is the Karachi coastal area is highly populated, and mostly people visit our coast like Clifton beaches and Hawkesbury and Sandsmith. And when we perform a study, we came to know that all kinds of pathogenic bacteria were found in alarming number in these areas, and they can become a reason to create various kinds of diseases among the population. So it is another very alarming situation that we should address. Pakistan, National Institute of Oceanography is also successful in addressing the climate-related impacts like saltwater intrusion, and this year we got a PSDP project, and inshallah we'll be able to complete this project within the coming 5 years, and we'll be able